Hey everyone, Dawn here with Real Estate by Dawn and Remax Professionals.
All right, I'm here with Dawn Morgan, and I'm going to ask her some questions about selling a house. Things that first home sellers would want to know.
First home sellers?
Yeah, first time home sellers. That's what we're going to go with, right?
All right.
Okay, here we go. Can you tell us what a seller's market is?
So a seller's market is when there are a ton of buyers out there, very high demand, and low inventory. Kind of like right now. So in a very good mid to price range between $300 and $450. Right now it is 100% for a detached single family home or half duplex, stuff like that for single family homes. As long as they're priced right, they are up and gone right away because there's so many qualified buyers out there right now and not close to enough houses for them.
Okay, and so that kind of answers the question of what kind of market is Edmonton in right now?
So again, single family homes, seller's market. Condominiums, it is a buyer's market. There are plenty of them, especially right now where a lot of people are working from home and are projected to work from home for the next year, maybe two, maybe longer. People are realizing that, hey, I need more space. My kid's now staying at home with me all day. I'm trying to work from home, and this 2-bedroom apartment doesn't do it. 2-bedroom plus den, good option. You have that extra bonus room. But what's happening is people who live in condos are realizing I need more space, and they're upgrading. So there are definitely a little more condos on the market then.
So you can have a mixed market.
Yeah.
Okay. So people would like to know if they should sell their current home before buying a new one.
So that one's kind of a mix. If you can afford to buy a second house and carry 2 mortgages, and you find a house that you absolutely have fallen in love with, then yes, I recommend if you can afford to do that, then go ahead. However, many people cannot afford to carry 2 mortgages or cannot get that second pre-approval or to waive those conditions without having their first house sold.
So how do you go about selling your home and buying one at the same time?
So I always recommend we start with talking to a bank. We're talking to a lender. It doesn't have to be a bank, it could be a mortgage broker. And always check what your options are. Like I said, if you can carry 2 mortgages at once and you can do that transition smoothly, then go right ahead. But sometimes, majority of the time, you need to actually sell your first house. So what we're going to do, we're going to get it ready, we're going to get it listed, get showings in there, hopefully pending right away so we can price it right. And then that way, your house is already pending. You can have that subject to condition or subject to sale condition, but you're not having to stress as much because your house is already pending or your house is already sold. So you're not having to worry too much. But typically, it is a little bit of a rougher transaction because you are having to worry about 2 places. However, a great realtor will make that nice and smooth for you.
All right. What do you or a realtor do to sell a home that an owner wouldn't be able to do on their own?
So personally for me, I do professional photography. I do all the measurements, so I make sure every single room is marked down so you know what size master you're going to get. So it's just an extra marketing tool. I do virtual tours, videography, paid ads for your advertising. We put it on MLS. We host open houses, whether that be virtual right now or in person. We do all of that for you, and that's included in our job for you. That, you know, maybe you have that experience to do by yourself, but without having that extra value that we can do for you, you might not sell it.
Okay. And how long does a house typically sit on the market?
So we always like to say, if a house is sitting, it's too high priced. If a house comes up and it's gone right away, it was priced to sell and it's priced according to the market. And so that's one thing to keep in mind. If we're looking at a house that's been sitting for 100 days, you know, you have typically a little bit more negotiable power in it versus a house that, you know, came up on the market last night and already has an offer this morning. You're probably coming in at a full price offer, if not slightly just above or slightly just below, because that's it's priced to sell and it's priced to go and it's priced to right now.
Okay. How do realtor fees work when you're selling a home?
So when you're selling a home, realtor commission is based on percentage. Typically, it's 7% on the first 100,000 and 3% on the balance. And then that is taken and split between both your buying agent and your selling agent. So sometimes, and there are brokerages that offer different fees, stuff like that. But that is typically the commission.
Okay. How does a professional realtor come up with the listing price?
So we take into consideration the age of the home, any upgrades, renovations that are done, the area, the comparable houses around it, what's selling, what's not, the lot size, the tax assessment. Basically, we look at everything as a big picture. We see what works, what doesn't. If the house next to you sold, but it's a 5,000 square foot house and you have 1,000 square feet, then obviously we're not going to use that one to compare. However, if the house next to you sold in a day and there's high demand in that area and you price your house correctly, then it'll sell quickly as well.
I see. Okay. So what's the city's assessed value and why is it different than the market value?
So the city assessed value takes your lot size compared to surrounding areas and the house and square footage of your house, and that is it. That is what they take in consideration. And unless you pulled permits, stuff like that, to build a deck or to add those extra upgrades. But if you've simply just redone your kitchen and done the upgrades, that changes the market value, but that does not change the city assessment. They just care that you have a house and you need to pay taxes. Market value, we take into consideration all those things that I mentioned and any upgrades that you have, or if you put in, if you completely gutted your house and renovated it top to bottom or finished your basement, stuff like that, we're going to take that into consideration when coming up with the market value price.
Okay. Should I wait for spring to list my house?
Right now, absolutely not. We have so many qualified buyers and so little houses that the market it's insane. Like I said, house that's priced right is up and gone in a weekend. And that's the market right now. So if you're thinking of listing, now is the time.
So with the market as hot as it is right now, do you think that people need to have all of these renovations done before they list? Or will they take those kind of things that need repairs into consideration when selling or buying?
Well, it all comes down to purchase price or selling price. If if every house in your block, for example, is for sale or has sold in the last 3 months or so, and they were all renovated and they sold for top dollar and your house isn't renovated, well, you're going to get less than what you're expecting because simply your house wasn't renovated. Mm-hmm. But if you take the time to renovate the house and you do the renovations that, add value to the place, then obviously you can get more for your house, but it really, and every situation is different. Like if you potentially could be a seller that you're like, hey, I got a new job, I need to sell, I'm moving across the country, then sitting around doing renovations and then waiting isn't going to be your option. If you have the time and you're like, oh, I think I'll be ready by spring or by summer to list, I'm not in a rush, then sure, do some renovations and up your value. But don't do renovations that aren't going to change anything. Because at that point, now you just spend more money and you're not getting any more for your house either.
So which renovations will give you the biggest bang for your buck and which ones are pointless?
That's a little bit of a tough one because it does change based on the house. I always recommend when you're doing just different upgrades, whether that be lighting or fixtures or, getting a new sink with a new tap, stuff like that, don't go for the $3,000 sink tap or the $3,000 light fixture. Go for a mid-range, something that looks classy or looks great, but isn't completely over the top. Because a nice light fixture, nice tap, nice whatever will look or value the same as something high-end. So it really, it really depends on the home. and what upgrades you're going to do. If you have a house built in the 90s that's original, then perhaps doing the flooring will be your best bet. If you have a house that you've slowly already redone some stuff and just want to finish it, then just finish the projects that are already done. So it really depends on the home.
What about a fresh coat of paint? Will that add value to a listing?
A fresh coat of paint definitely will help with marketing, especially. Painting something in like a modern neutral color, whites, grays, stuff like that, is kind of where you want to be at. Slapping a fresh coat of paint on something, but painting it bright yellow or bright green or different stuff like that isn't really going to help. Nor is it going to really help with showings either. And you want buyers to walk through your home and picture themselves living there. And sometimes it's a lot harder for some buyers than others to see themselves living in a house if it's painted bright yellow. So there's a fine line between a fresh coat of paint helping to sell your house and a fresh coat of paint kind of being a waste of money.
Oh, that makes lots of sense. Are there any advantages in selling in the fall or winter?
So we like to always say that buyers who are willing to get dressed up in -20 weather and go out view houses are obviously motivated and ready to go buyers. Nobody is going to go tire kicking and just go wander through a house when it's -20 and just think it's a fun thing to do in the cold. So the advantage is you're getting a range of buyers that are actually motivated and ready to go.
Oh, okay.
And there's also less competition for like many people believe that selling in the spring or summer is the way to go. And when you have a group of motivated buyers in the winter ready to buy, if you're one of the houses they get to see because you actually listed, your house is probably going to sell.
Oh, that makes lots of sense. But what are the things that I need to do to get my house ready for showings? And are there different things I need to do in the winter compared to spring or summer?
Okay. Well, let's start with curb appeal. Winter, make sure your driveway is shoveled out or snow blown out. You never want somebody to ever get stuck in your driveway because that is the impression they're going to have. When you think of your home being on the market and ready to sell, you want to look at what a buyer would see in the first 30 seconds of them walking in. If not a shorter period of time, they typically will make a decision right then and there if it works for them or not. So having a bad impression where their vehicle is now stuck in your driveway because it's not cleared out properly, probably not a great thing. Again, sidewalks as well, you don't want anybody to ever slip and fall, and that's just a safety precaution. Curb appeal in the summertime is very important. Have some beautiful flowers, make sure grass isn't cut, and stuff like that, to make sure that when they pull up, they're like, wow, this is a beautiful house. Even sometimes in certain areas you need to make sure that your siding's cleaned, so getting a power wash is a good thing. Or again, even on your stairs. If your paint's peeling and stuff, slapping another coat of paint on your deck or your stairwell in the front will definitely help with that curb appeal. Inside, when getting ready for a showing, we'll typically walk through and I'll tell you, hey, this is a little bit cluttered. If we can start packing up some of this, or if we can put this collection of bean bags away, let's do that. Because you don't want to have your house personalized to you. You want a buyer to be able to walk in and see, hey, I can actually put my world map there, or I can picture my sectional going here and our TV there, and we could be cooking and watching the hockey game, stuff like that. You don't want, big, huge family pictures of you all over, because they're not going to be able to picture themselves there. And that's why you're selling, is because you want to move and you want somebody else to buy your house.
So decluttering and curb appeal
Or your top two.
Okay. How do you do showings during COVID?
So everybody is masked. And I know I carry around Lysol wipes with me as well. So if we need to turn some lights on or, open closet doors, stuff like that, we're able to. I always like to ask my sellers, if the house isn't vacant, when they leave, to just turn all the lights on in the house. We let them know, hey, the showing's from 5:30 to 6:30. Head out 5 minutes before, whatever, just turn on all the lights so it minimizes touching. If you can leave your closet doors open, that's even better, just to minimize the touching. But of course, right now, especially the real estate council, they mandate that we all have to wear masks as well. and there's only 2 people per showing right now in a house.
2 people per showing? Is that including you?
Plus me,
Okay.
plus the realtor.
Okay.
So if you have a group of 5, you basically have to rotate between the people to minimize.
How do we photograph? How do you get ready for photographing the house? What happens in that process?
So again, it comes down to decluttering. We want to make sure that's show ready. So if you have a lot of knickknacks and stuff, just pop them in a cupboard even. Just put them away for the photography, videography, stuff like that. I know my photographer that I use, we have a thing where we always put all the dish soap and stuff that you see around the sink and just into the sink to help, again, show the house. You're not showing them that you use Dawn dish detergent or that, like, different stuff like that, or you have a collection of frog soap holders throughout your house, or you want the house, again, to show for the buyers. You want them to picture. So again, it just comes down to decluttering, cleaning up, doing your stuff, and the photography will work.
What do we do with pets during photography, or also during showings?
So typically, especially for dogs, we do request that they be removed for each showing. If you have a cat that is either A, an escape artist and bound to get out, or B, has maybe a vicious side where they don't like unknown people in their home, we definitely ask for photography, any of that, and for showings, that you just pop them out of the house for the showings. Sometimes that's not always available. Say you're at work during the day and you get a last minute showing, stuff like that. But definitely with dogs, we ask them to be kenneled in the backyard, or, well, not in the winter, but in the summertime if that's an option, or just taken off the property for the duration of the showing.
Okay. What's the process of somebody putting an offer on the house, on our house?
So, buyer comes through, they like a place, your realtor will get the feedback. If they find out there's an offer, awesome. We'll let you know. At that point, then you can negotiate, a different selling time. If you need a different possession day, if the condition date, sometimes right now where it's really busy, the banks are backed up for buyers. So sometimes we ask for a little bit of a longer condition date, but if you find that it's too long, you can ask to shorten that to make the offer more competitive. If you want a higher purchase price, you can negotiate on the price. Once we come to an agreement that the buyer and yourself are happy with, then you can proceed from there. And the house will be pending, and then they'll get rid of their conditions at that point, working on those.
What happens when the house is pending? Do we still show it? Do we start packing? What do we do?
So it depends on what the offer is. If there's a fast possession and you have a lot of stuff in your home, then definitely start packing. Don't try not to damage any more walls. If you're pulling stuff off, like shelving, stuff like that, make sure you're covering, fixing those holes. For when you're pending, you can still have other showings. Some agents will show a pending house, some won't. Sometimes it is really up to the seller as well, especially in a situation now where COVID is an issue. We don't want, or some sellers don't want, once the house is pending, they don't want more strangers walking through unless, that there's issues with that pending offer. Then, you'll open it back up, but it really depends on the seller and what their preferences are.
What happens if the buyers don't waive their conditions?
So if they don't waive their conditions, that means either they're financing or there's an issue with the home inspection, stuff like that. Something went wrong on their side of things, and your house is considered pending, so it will become active again and go back on the market, open up for showings again, stuff like that.
Okay. What does waiving conditions mean?
So waiving conditions typically are financing, home inspection, condominium document review. It could be simply a parking satisfaction. If you're like, I had a client and we wanted to make sure that before we bought that his truck fit in the garage. So that was a condition, that if the truck didn't fit, the garage door couldn't close, they don't want the house. Condition can ultimately be anything, but the top 3 are your condominium doc review, home inspection, and financing.
Home inspection. What's a home inspection? What can I expect from it?
So on a selling side of things, we always recommend, if you think there's going to be some issues or if it's an older home, get a pre-listing home inspection. That will allow you to find out if there's any issues or anything you should fix before accepting an offer, before having new buyers come in with their home inspector. because at that point you're out of the house, they do their thing, and any issues they can come back and actually negotiate, either you fix them, stuff like that. So if you have a pre-listing home inspection, then you can be aware of those issues and know whether you should fix them or you adjust your price accordingly.
So if something comes up on a home inspection, what are your options?
For a selling perspective, if the buyer comes back to you and they're like, hey, we want this fixed or we want this much money off, at that point you have three options. One, you can fix it. Two, you can agree or negotiate a price to take off to decrease the sale price. Or number three, you can simply say no. Depending on the situation, if it's something minor, the buyer may just choose to proceed. Major stuff, if you guys can't come to an agreement, then sometimes the buyer can just walk away and start their search again.
Okay. What is the first question that sellers ask you when they're your client?
Is now a good time to list? And right now, the answer is yes.
Okay, what's the most asked question you get from sellers?
Is now a good time to list? That answer is yes.
All right, so the takeaway here is that it's a good time to list in Edmonton right now.
Yeah, especially single family homes. If it's priced right, it's gone. So honestly, if you're thinking about selling, now is the time.
All right, thank you very much, Dawn Morgan, and we'll get back to you about buying.
Awesome.
All right.